She told me she loved me. Then she left. Just like that, no fight, no slammed doors, just silence. And a chair still warm, but somehow colder than ever. There was no explanation. Only an emptiness that echoed louder than words, and I kept wondering, did she ever really love me? Or did she fall for the man she imagined I was? The provider, the protector, the strong and silent type. What if, like Jung said, she wasn't loving me, but a symbol her own unconscious projected onto me? A dream she created, and one day simply woke up from. If you're a man over 50, this might sound familiar. You spent decades doing what you thought was right, working long hours, carrying the weight, providing for everyone. You showed love, the way you were taught, through action, not words. You didn't complain. You didn't ask for much. You just kept going. You believed that being a good man meant enduring quietly. But here's the truth. Love isn't measured by the number of bills you paid or roofs you fixed. It's measured by presence. By the way you look at her across the dinner table, by the space you're willing to open inside yourself and invite her into. Most men were taught to hide emotions, to stay strong, composed, unshakable. But most women, they want to see you behind the silence. They're not looking for a hero. They're looking for someone real. She doesn't need you to solve everything. She needs to know that when she cries, you don't disappear into your garage or your glass of whiskey. That when you hurt, you don't vanish, but stay and let her see the man beneath the armor. Because in the end, what she wants isn't what you do. It's who you are, and whether you're willing to let her in. Steve was 63 when she left. They'd been married 35 years, built a life together, raised 2 kids, paid off a mortgage, traveled every now and then. From the outside, it looked steady, respectable, even enviable. So when he walked into a quiet kitchen one evening and found a handwritten note on the counter, everything he thought he understood about his life collapsed. I didn't cheat. I didn't scream. I didn't lay a hand on her, he told me, eyes vacant. I was a good man. I worked hard. I never left. Then he paused. But she did. Steve wasn't angry. He was stunned, like someone who'd woken up in a house that no longer belonged to him. When I asked him to tell me what their marriage had really been like, he spoke slowly, thoughtfully. He talked about long days at work, followed by long nights watching TV in silence. He remembered how she would sit on the other side of the room, sometimes crying softly, and how he wouldn't know what to say, so he just waited out, quietly. I thought giving her space was love, he said. I thought, if I just stayed calm and didn't argue, that was enough. But it wasn't, because love without expression feels like absence, and over time, silence feels like neglect. Their house was always warm, the fridge was always full, the bills were paid on time, but their conversations turned into logistics. Their laughter faded, their hugs became rare, and eventually Steve said, we stopped bumping into each other emotionally. There was no betrayal, no abuse, no big mistake, just the slow, quiet erosion of connection, and that's what many men don't see coming. We assume that if we don't do anything wrong, everything will be fine. But Steve learned something the hard way. Sometimes it's not what you did, it's what you didn't do. You didn't reach for her hand when she was slipping. You didn't speak when your silence was breaking her. You didn't show her what was happening inside you, so she stopped believing anything was happening at all. I never hit her, he said again quietly, but maybe I also never touched her where it mattered most. And that's the pain so many men live with, not the guilt of wrongdoing, but the ache of realizing they were emotionally absent, even while physically present. That's how you lose someone, without ever raising your voice. Not because of conflict, but because of emotional invisibility. What happened to Steve isn't rare. In fact, it's painfully common. Dr. John Gottman, one of the most respected marriage researchers in the world, spent decades studying couples, and what he discovered was this. Most marriages don't die because of a single catastrophic event. They die from small emotional wounds left untreated. from patterns that over time erode connection like water carving through rock. He calls them the 4 horsemen of marital apocalypse, and they show up quietly until it's too late. Criticism. It starts with little jabs. She never appreciates. What I do, he always forgets what I say. Instead of addressing behaviors, you start attacking character. You're so selfish, you never listen. These moments feel small, but they're the first cracks. Defensiveness. When criticized, the natural instinct is to defend. You say, I'm doing my best, or that's not fair. But it doesn't heal anything. It just tells your partner, I'm not listening to your pain. I'm busy protecting myself. Stonewalling, this is where many men live. When overwhelmed, we shut down. We withdraw to our cave, the garage, the shed, the television. We stop talking. We go silent, not because we don't care, but because we don't know how to engage emotionally. But to the woman across from you, silence doesn't feel safe. It feels like abandonment. Contempt. This is the most dangerous one, when eye rolls replace empathy, when sarcasm replaces sincerity, when you see each other not as teammates, but as opponents. Contempt is where marriages go to die. And here's the painful truth Gottman discovered. These behaviors don't need to be loud to be lethal. You can avoid shouting matches. You can stay polite, you can even sleep in the same bed every night, but if you don't speak your fears, if you don't say what hurts, if you never reach for her hand when your heart is aching, she will begin to believe something terrible. That you have no feelings left to give, and when a woman starts to believe that, she stops trying to reach you. She starts grieving the version of you she once felt close to, and she begins the quiet process of leaving. Sometimes emotionally first, physically later. It doesn't matter that you still love her if you can't show. It dream in words, presence, vulnerability. She'll think the well has run dry. Gottman's research is clear. Emotional disconnection is the silent killer of love. So if you're wondering why she left, maybe ask, when did I stop letting her? See me? Alan was 58 when his first marriage ended. He had done everything right. Good job, stable income, loyal, never cheated. But after 28 years, it all unraveled, not in chaos, but in quiet distance. His wife said she felt alone, even while lying next to him. That sentence haunted him. Alan spent the next year trying to make sense of what happened. He read. He went to therapy, something he once thought was for people who couldn't handle life. He started asking himself hard questions. Why had he gone silent when things got hard? Why did he feel safer fixing the sink than sitting with her tears? Then, a few years later, Alan met someone new, a kind, intuitive woman named Laura. They fell in love gently, slowly, but not without fear. Alan was terrified of repeating the same mistakes. He told himself he had to be stronger this time, smarter, more in control. But that mindset almost ruined everything again. There was a night, one he still remembers clearly, when Laura sat on the couch and said, "Sometimes I don't know what's going on inside you. I feel like you vanish." Alan froze. His instinct was to defend, but something in him had changed. Instead of shutting down, he leaned forward. He took a deep breath, and he said the one sentence that changed the course of that relationship. "I don't know how to fix this, but I'm here, and I want to understand." He didn't give a solution. He didn't promise he'd never hurt her. He didn't pretend to have it all figured out. He just showed up, emotionally, imperfectly, completely. And in that moment, something opened. Laura softened. She reached out. She felt him again. That's when Alan realized the strongest thing a man can do is admit he doesn't have all the answers. It's not weakness to be unsure. It's not failure to feel lost. The failure is in hiding, in pretending, in covering your heart with silence. Alan used to believe love meant being a rock. Now he knows love means being real. When Laura hurts, he doesn't rush to fix. He listens. When he's scared, he doesn't bury it. He says, "I'm struggling today." And something beautiful happens when a man speaks like that. The woman doesn't pull away. She leans in. Because at the end of the day, women don't need perfect men. They need men who are present. Alan still messes up. He still goes quiet sometimes, but now he catches himself. He returns faster. He knows that what saved his second marriage wasn't strategy. It was surrender, surrendering the need to be right, to be in control, to look strong all the time. That one moment. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to understand wasn't just a sentence. It was an invitation to connection, to truth, to love, the way it was always meant to be. Carl Jung once asked a haunting question. What if she never loved you? What if she loved the idea of you? It sounds cruel at first, almost like a betrayal, but if you sit with it long enough, you realize it's not about blame, it's about awakening, because many women, often unknowingly, fall in love with a man's potential, the protector, the provider, the man who shows up strong, stoic, and silent. They fall for the symbol of a man, not necessarily the man himself, not the parts that are tired, or scared, or confused, not the vulnerable teenager inside still aching to be seen, not the wounded child who learned long ago that emotions are dangerous. She may have loved your power, your certainty, your reliability, but when the armor comes off, when real life exposes your shadows, the truth emerges. She didn't know how to love the man behind the mask, and maybe neither did you, because here's the deeper truth Jung uncovered. Every man carries a shadow, the parts of ourselves we disown, repress, or reject. It's where we bury our sadness, our softness, our need to be held. We lock those things away, thinking they make us less of a man. We think if we just keep achieving, keep performing, keep being enough, someone will finally see us. But no one ever does, not fully, because we never show up as whole, and that's the tragedy. You become the idea of a man, even to yourself. I'm the strong one. I don't cry. I don't need anyone. And then one day she leaves, and you're left staring at a mirror asking, who am I if I'm not what she saw? This is where Jung's greatest insight matters. Healing doesn't begin when someone else sees you. Healing begins when you see you. He called it individuation, the process of becoming whole, not perfect, not admired, not endlessly loved, just whole. It's not about fixing yourself so you'll be worthy of someone else's love. It's about reclaiming the parts you've hidden, the fear, the longing, the softness, and saying, this is me too, and I'm not ashamed. Because when you finally meet your shadow, not as an enemy, but as a guide, you stop needing validation. You stop chasing approval. You stop shrinking parts of yourself just to be accepted, and something extraordinary happens. You begin to feel solid again, not because someone else holds you, but because you finally hold yourself. That's the shift. You stop asking, why didn't she love the real me? And start wondering, have I ever truly loved myself? Individuation is not the end of love. It's the beginning of real love. Love that isn't about roles or appearances or performance, but about truth. Love where you can sit across from someone, no mask, no armor, and say, this is who I am, all of me, the light and the dark, the man and the boy, the strength and the sorrow, and whether or not she stays after that. You'll know one thing for sure, you finally stayed for yourself, and for the first time in a long time, that's enough. Have you ever felt like you were loved for the mask, not the man? Like someone cared for what you represented, not who you really are? Have you ever laid next to a woman for years, yet still felt completely alone? If you've ever been left and didn't know why, if you ever asked yourself, wasn't I good enough? This space is for you, because maybe you were never truly seen. Maybe she loved the idea of you, the version that never cried, never broke, never needed. But that's not love, that's projection. And what you need, what you deserve, is to be loved as a whole man, with your strength and your sorrow, your wisdom and your wounds. So if you've been hiding behind silence, behind duty, behind years of holding it together, maybe now is the time to come home, not to someone else, but to yourself. Drop a comment below. I'm done hiding. I'm learning to feel again. Let that be your first act of truth, because here you don't need to impress anyone. You don't need to explain everything. You just need to be real, and that is enough.